Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to Women in STEM Connect. I am Christina Eleki, the Executive Director for the Chicago Council on Science and Technology, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you live and also online. We have a live stream going on throughout the program today. The Chicago Council on Science and Technology, or as we refer to it, C2ST, seeks to enhance the public understanding of understanding and appreciation of science and technology and its impact on society. Tonight, our aim is to do what C2ST does so well, serve as a consortium and bring different women in STEM groups together from various organizations across the area. Tonight's program is sponsored by Horizon Pharma, HDMZ Media, and the School of the Art Institute. So a big thank you for Holly Copeland. Thank you. A big thank you for Holly Copeland. She will join us later tonight for her corporate STEM leadership, and also HDMZ Media, who approached us back in 2013 with the idea of this collaborative video series. So thank you, Marina, Damiano, Ryan, and David. I know you are here in the audience. If you like tonight's program, please consider joining as a member. Your annual gift will help us produce programs throughout the year and also achieve our mission. If you're not ready to sign up for membership, you can also donate. Matter of fact, if you haven't heard, today is Giving Tuesday. So it's a global day of giving and celebrating generosity by coming together and give something more. We hope you will keep C2ST in mind, if not today, but towards the end of the year, since we have our end of the year campaign starting today as well. So tonight's program has 3 sections. First of all, we would like to show you the 3 videos that are featuring our 3 panelists tonight. Then we'll have the panel discussion and networking event with refreshments in the back. So with that, I would like to ask to roll the video.
Science today is so much more than laboratories and white coats. It's one of the engines that fuels our cities. It's going into the unknown to solve a problem. It's changing the way we look at the world, and it's time to change the way we look at science. Let's go explore Chicago science.
Every day I come to work helping entrepreneurs build companies. My name is Kapila. I'm the Director for Enterprise Work Chicago at the University of Illinois, managing the incubation arm on the Chicago campus. And what we're really working on is how do we take some of the great science and research that's happening in the university and create those types of products that you use every day in your life, whether it's whether it's the antibiotic that you take, the cold medicine that you take, the personalized electronic health record on your smartphone, or the hip replacement that your elderly parent or grandparent just had. I knew pretty early on that I wanted to go into engineering, understood how things worked on a scientific level, but I was more apt to how do we translate this and how do we communicate what we're actually doing from a technological standpoint into sort of business terms. What I do value and what I do use and what I'm grateful for every day that I did the engineering studies is that the logic, the thought process, the ability to connect diverse parts and pieces to solve problems. It's a very exciting time for the innovation space in Chicago. I get to work with entrepreneurs every day who are so passionate and so excited about what they're trying to do and just need a little help to get over the hump. I find inspiration every day at the university from the passion of the researchers and innovators working to commercialize their technologies. I'm Kapila, and I help innovators bring science into our lives.
Science today is so much more than laboratories and white coats. It's one of the engines that fuels our cities. It's going into the unknown to solve a problem. It's changing the way we look at the world, and it's time to change the way we look at science. Let's go explore Chicago science.
Science can tell us what we need to do to improve the health of our waterways. But to get the resources to do that, that's politics. My name is Debra Shore. I'm a commissioner on the board of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. What this agency does is take that waste, not only from your toilet, but also the water that goes out of your washing machine, out of your dishwasher, out of your shower, and in many cases the water from rain that flows down the drain in the street, and it treats that. Many years ago, I became a volunteer here in Cook County. Through that work, I became more active politically. One of the things I love about my job is that I get to keep learning about so many different things. We have a greenhouse here with soil scientists who are studying how plants take up nutrients and other constituents from our biosolids. We have engineers who are designing new systems and testing new processes to see if they can cut the amount of energy that's used in the treatment process. The wastewater treatment process used here requires several types of bacteria. These bacteria break down the ammonia into nitrates and nitrites, and it makes for healthier waterways. I really am at the intersection of science and policy and politics. The decisions that we make, the policies we frame, need to be based on sound science, and yet they affect people's lives. If you want to go into something where I think there will be guaranteed jobs in the future, do something with water. Water is going to be the issue in years to come. Unlike fossil fuels, there are no substitutes for fresh water. I'm Debra Shore, and I help to protect the drinking water supply for more than 5 million people every day.
Science today is so much more than laboratories and white coats. It's one of the engines that fuels our cities. It's going into the unknown to solve a problem. It's changing the way we look at the world, and it's time to change the way we look at science. Let's go explore Chicago science.
Science is happening all around you when you come and visit a brewery. My name is Bauer, and I'm the head brewer of the Lagunitas Chicago Brewery. I love the scientific process that is making beer, and it's also a creative process as well. We have all kinds of reactions that happen in the brewing process. For instance, in our mash kettle, we encourage enzymatic reactions where we have alpha and beta amylase that are working to break down long-chain starch molecules into short-chain fermentable sugars. We have a fermentation process that goes on in the tanks behind me. We even have physics that goes on in our final clarification procedures where we separate particles based on density. There are two very different things that I love about my job. Number one is that I get to work with a process that is surrounded by food chemistry. The other piece to my job is that I get to lead an amazing team of brewers. I chose a career in food science because I could learn about all the molecules and reactions and enzymes that went into all the foods and beverages that the general public loves to enjoy on a day-to-day basis. I think people should explore science as a major or a career opportunity because there's so many opportunities for people that love science. My name is Bauer, and I use my passion for science to create a beverage that millions of people around the world love to enjoy.
And with this, my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator, Dr. Rob Eumaeus. She's the Director of Science and Integrated Strategies in the Center for the Advancement of Science Education, or CASE, at the Museum of Science and Industry. Rabia is a member of numerous professional societies, nonprofit boards, and advisory committees for science learning and engagement initiatives. She's currently a featured repeat guest at WTTW's Chicago Tonight for their Scientific Chicago segment. Rabia earned a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology at the University of Chicago, her BS in biochemistry and molecular biology, and a certificate in modern languages and linguistics from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where she was a Meyerhoff Scholar. Rabia?
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, for being here. That was a very nice introduction, but is nowhere near as impressive as the biographies of the women who we're here to see this evening. So I know we started a little bit late, and I want to get us into the meat of this discussion. So I'll just say that it's such an honor to be here and to be a part of this really exciting event. Hopefully you got just a snapshot from those videos of how incredible our panelists are today. And so let's dive right in to having a great conversation with them. Just a bit of housekeeping. What we're going to do is have a little bit of a conversation here on stage with some questions that we've come up with or heard from some of you in advance. And then towards the end of the conversation, we'll turn it over to some questions from the audience. So start thinking about questions you may have. There will be volunteers and staff members with microphones. So when it's time for questions, we'll ask that you wait for a microphone so everyone can hear you, and then we'll direct that to the panel. Okay, sound good? All right, so I'd like to invite onto the stage our panelists. You've just seen a little bit about them, but of course, first we've got Mary Bauer from Lagunitas Brewery here in Chicago. After her, we have Debra Shore from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And finally, Kapila Vaigas from the Enterprise Works Chicago at the University of Illinois. Okay, I gotta get my microphone situation. Okay, while I get my technology figured out, what I'd actually like to ask all the ladies to do is to go down the line. Mary, we'll start with you. Just give us a quick snapshot. We saw your videos, which were fantastic. But for those of us in the room, just give us a quick overview of your role at the organization, each of you ladies, and then also kind of what your job is. What does that really mean? We got to see a little bit about what you do, but what's your job like, and also what do you find rewarding about it? So we'll just go down the line and start with you, Mary.
Okay. Hello, my name is Mary Bauer. I'm the head brewer at the Lagunitas Chicago Brewery. For those of you guys that may not know, Lagunitas is the 6th largest craft brewer in the entire country. We were founded in 1993, originally in California by our owner, Tony McGee. We're actually the second brewery that was built for Lagunitas. The first one is in Petaluma, California. You can come visit us at the Douglas Park location, and we've been brewing beer there for about a year and a half. We've brewed 26 different beers, including our flagship IPA, which if you're 21, you can try a little bit later after the panel here today. And basically, I have a team of 15 brewers and 2 supervisors that we oversee everything that has to do with the brewing process. And that includes everything from unloading and inspecting raw materials, to creating wort in our brew house, to monitoring the fermentation process in our tanks, creating awesome aromas by dry hopping, and then clarifying the finished beer for package. So it's really an exciting job, I think. Lots of science involved, and hopefully opening some eyes to see how much science really goes into making beer.
Awesome. Thank you. I have no idea what most of what you just said meant, and I was a yeast biochemist, so that's embarrassing. Excellent. Thank you. Debra.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Debra Shore. I'm a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. That's an elected post in Cook County. The Water Reclamation District is the agency that treats wastewater, sewage, and manages stormwater for all of Cook County, Illinois. So we serve the equivalent of 10 million people because we treat not only residential wastewater, but also industrial wastewater. There's a board of 9 commissioners elected at large in Cook County for 6-year terms. I'm in my 2nd term. I'll have served for 9 years in another week. And we have a budget of about $1.2 billion, just under 2,000 employees, including about 500 engineers of all stripes: mechanical, structural, civil, environmental, electrical, operating, hoisting, and other scientists, waterways biologists, and many others. So I was not trained in the sciences, but as I said in the video, I sit at the intersection where science affects policy and needs to undergird our decisions, but I'm also dealing with politics. So happy to tell you more about that later.
Excellent, thank you. And Kapila.
Hi, I'm Kapila Vijus, the director for Enterprise Works Chicago, which sits on the university, it's part of the University of Illinois and sits up here in the Chicago campus. And it's essentially, it's an incubator. And you hear that term a little bit in the video, and what does that actually mean when you're not in the lab, right? We're all scientists, or many of us are scientists. We know an incubator is basically the provision of a nurturing environment in which cell cultures can grow, right? So if you extrapolate that into the academic environment around technologies, basically we take very early stage innovation, technology ideas, and entrepreneurs and provide an environment in which they can grow. And so we try to put resources, services, programs, facilities, and assets around technology and entrepreneurs or innovators to try and help them find their path to market. So our tagline is, we accelerate things from the mind to the marketplace, and have sort of the opportunity to take innovation, assess its potential, its value, identify industry problems that this particular technology can try and solve, and then map out what its path to market might be. We work with a lot of complex technologies in the life sciences, engineering, energy to energy, water treatment, and try to devise out what's the long-term strategy, what are the costs associated with it, and we enlist a whole host of stakeholders, industry stakeholders, academic stakeholders, financial stakeholders, experts in all different areas to try and pull this together, because it doesn't all happen in its own little vacuum, but we try to align resources to be able to help technologies find their path to market. And then if they do ultimately form into startup companies, how do we help those very early stage companies become viable in the marketplace?
Excellent. So I think we're going to jump right in, and in thinking about the tagline or the header for this this evening, the idea of a non-traditional science career is certainly really prominent, right? None of these women here are actively in a conventional research laboratory, as you might imagine, and for some time that was kind of considered on the fringe. And so I'd like to ask our panel about your thoughts about this idea of non-traditional careers. How do you think that these types of careers involving science are really important? Does non-traditional even mean anything to you anymore? And what does that mean for the future of science and policy and technology in the future? This idea of a non-traditional career where science is incredibly important.
So,
who would like to start? Yeah,
I'll take that.
Jump in.
I'll take it first. So I will say, when I went into engineering, so I'm an engineer by training in material science, I kind of knew relatively early that I probably wasn't going to be the person in the lab developing all these breakthrough innovations. And so for me personally, I kind of knew that there was an alternative non-traditional career path for me. However, what I will say, what surprised me throughout my academic training and throughout my career and working with scientists is how little people actually think about that, and that because as scientists we're trained to be very linear, think very linearly, and take ourselves down a singular path, that we don't always kind of think about what else is out there. And so, I mean, just sort of as an entree into the conversation, as any of you are either thinking about non-traditional scientific careers or have opportunity to explore them, recognize that scientific training is incredibly valuable in almost any field whether it's law, finance, business. There is always value in those scientific training or engineering training that can take you anywhere into the arts.
And if I can follow up, Debra, you kind of have self-identified as a non-trained scientist in a very scientific career, and so I'm curious about your experience when in your career that is very tightly connected to science and policy. What has that experience been coming into it, not from a formal scientific background?
So thank you. I was a philosophy and art major in college, and had no idea what I wanted to do, pursued what I was interested in, was told that I was a good writer. I've been an avid reader, and I ended up getting a few positions as a writer, never imagining or never had an ambition that I would go into elected office. My path began in the Cook County Forest Preserves, where in the early 1990s I began to volunteer doing habitat restoration. I found a group of people who were trying to restore the biological diversity in our remnant prairies and oak woods and wetlands. I'd been a hiker and camper in other places and wanted to get to know nature near where I lived. And I found that I liked the work and I liked the people, and I gradually learned about our native ecosystems and how valuable and important they are and how many of them are degraded and under threat. And that led me to get more involved politically, to start advocating for more resources, for better care, to help elect more reform-minded people to the Cook County Board. And I happen to believe that water is going to be the issue in years to come. We're terrifically fortunate to live next to nearly 20% of the world's fresh surface water in the Great Lakes. And somebody asked me if I would consider running for the board of the Water Reclamation District. I think my naivete served me well, because I had no idea what it meant to run at large in Cook County, Illinois for an obscure post. And I was the first person in 20 years to run with any kind of conservation background or credentials. But because I was naive, I did what they told me to do, and I was able to be successful. I think that being able to just ask good questions serves you in any endeavor, and a good education will help you with that. And now I'm dealing with all kinds of scientific and policy issues: Asian carp, nutrient recovery, disinfection of the treated water, pharmaceutical disposal, and we may circle back to some of those, but it's a great way to just keep learning. And I would just close by saying we need more people with scientific training, engineers, nurses, architects, mathematicians in public office. We need more of you. We don't need more lawyers.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'd piggyback on that, as well as I actually went into school and thinking that I was going to be in a laboratory doing research, and I did a 2-year undergraduate research project at the University of Illinois, and it was great. It was in flavor chemistry, and I really enjoyed the work that I was doing, but it was it was just a little bit isolated for me. I found myself in the lab by myself. I was starting to talk to myself, and I thought, okay, this is not okay anymore. So I decided that maybe I needed to do something more with people, and being able to be a leader and a manager, but still wanted to keep my scientific my scientific base. And I actually, out of school, started with Anheuser Busch, which is now Anheuser Busch InBev, and they had a real interesting philosophy in all their roles that they brought people in out of school. They looked for the science, they looked for the engineers, they looked for the chemists, because if somebody could understand the science, that was already proven by your grades and your degree. They could teach you the business side. That's how they brought everybody in. So that's how I got my start, and it's something that I think will continue to prove itself very worthwhile, is to have the sciences and sustainability and the different diversity in foods that we look for now, and better food sources and water preservation. There's so much opportunity for the sciences in the future.
So it sounds like, and I know we have some young women in the room tonight, that an interest in science or pursuing science can really position you well in a variety of careers. And so I wanted to actually go back to you, Mary, to piggyback off something Debra said around water being a really critical issue and something that is important for the future. In your industry, what do you think is hot? What is the next big thing, or what's the next big question in your industry that you and your colleagues are trying to solve, say in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a big question. Well, with craft brewing right now, craft beer is just growing leaps and bounds. So it's a great industry with a lot of opportunities. So, as far as either being in the lab in a brewery, being a part of the finance team, being a part of the brewing team, there's so many jobs being created by the craft brewing industry. It's exciting. And what's even more exciting for someone that's into science is creating new recipes. What's new, what's different, what's rare that we can grab people's attention with. And that's where the food science and the flavor chemistry come into play when you're creating brewing recipes for us. So that's something that's fun. And then you use your engineering side to look at ways to improve your process. Ways to use less water, ways to clean more effectively with using less chemical. All that, we're constantly looking at our process in order to improve it, make it more cost effective, and make it more sustainable. So those are definitely big initiatives for us for the next 5 years.
Kapila, what about you? What are you seeing in your work from your entrepreneurs that is really exciting and hot, and the place to maybe consider being in the next 5 to 10 years?
So that's actually an interesting question, because I actually have the privilege of working in multiple industries. So I get to work across a host of different disciplines. And I would say primarily our portfolio is focused in healthcare and in the life sciences, drug discovery, medical device development. And I would say, the process for drug discovery and how we identify mechanisms of discovering new drugs, developing them, getting them through clinical trials, the data that's required to get things through clinical trials, the data that goes into trying to identify those initial those initial compounds or proteins that are going to go into a therapeutic is all changing. It's changing very, very quickly. And so what we see the big gap, though, or our challenge is the business is in one space, the industries are in one space, regulation is in another space, and scientists are in a third space. So having somebody who can translate for all three of those agencies and stakeholders is incredibly critical. They don't speak the same language, and having knowledge of how to do that is a huge opportunity going forward to be able to be more efficient about drug development, be more cost effective, identify better ways to target patients, do it in a way that fits the business models for all the stakeholders that have finances at risk in doing it, and meet the policy and regulatory requirements that are actually necessary to get drugs to market. And so just people with those skill sets to be able to translate is incredibly critical.
So you mentioned in a different context risk, and I want to kind of get to that a little bit. So I think it's pretty rare for people to get to your levels of accomplishment and success without having taken some risks. So it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about maybe what kinds of risks are involved in your career, or perhaps a risk that you've taken, whether it paid off or not. I think that's often the kind of thing that we don't often hear about. So we'd love to hear a little bit about that. Anyone, jump on in.
So I'll start just because I work with entrepreneurs, and by definition I deal with risk all day and every day, and just today we were having the conversation, but how are we de-risking this technology to take it to the next level? So risk is a very common vocabulary for us with startup companies, and I think one way to think about it is it's not really a scary word. I mean, there's risk in everything we do. It's sort of that everything is along that risk-reward profile, and you kind of always have to look at the cost benefits of taking risk. And if you look at the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the game changers, the scientists that made great breakthroughs, they took risks, but they took thoughtful, calculated, mitigated risks. And so it's not about like sort of just jumping in head first without a plan or without a thought. It's about understanding risk, really, and getting a little bit more comfortable with it and knowing how you're going to mitigate it from a couple different angles. And if it doesn't work out, what's your backup? So it's just about sort of recognizing there's going to be inherent risk in lots of things that we do, but how are you going to manage it, understand it, and mitigate it going forward?
So one of the things that's interesting about risk, and I've heard it in my own work, and I think there's some commentary out there that says that men are more likely to take risks than women. We can argue that maybe over drinks. But I'm particularly interested either in the context of taking risks or being innovative or just in general. Is there a different perception for women in your respective fields? Do you get the sense that women are perceived differently, or have you experienced things, positive or negative, that you think are connected to your being a woman in your industry?
Well, certainly we know that women need to be asked to run for office, and research has shown they need to be asked about 5 to 7 times. Because women think, am I qualified? What's this going to mean for my family? How can I raise the money? Men, if they get the idea of running for office, it's boom, I'm there, whether I'm qualified or not. So we need to ask each other, please run for office. There are great candidate training programs that will help you, but that certainly is part of what we know women need to be asked.
And in politics, are there support networks? Are there resources once women get into politics? Because I imagine staying in politics successfully is also a challenge.
Well, absolutely, and let me just say that when women run, they are more successful. They have greater success rates at winning than men, but it's a bigger hurdle to get them there. There's a program in Illinois that I'm part of called the Illinois Women's Institute for Leadership that seeks to train Democratic women to run for office. There's a counterpart on the Republican side called the Lincoln Series that recruits women and trains them to run for office. There are similar programs in other states, and then it becomes a great sisterhood and network of women who can help each other. In fact, another member of our Board of Commissioners, Carrie Steele, trained as a chemist, went through this program a few years after I did, and also was elected to our board.
Mary, what about you?
Yeah, I get some interesting looks when I say that I'm the head brewer at Lagunitas Chicago. First, it's usually the first comment is usually, "Where's your beard?" And the second comment is, "Where's your flannel or your beer belly?" So actually, it just happened on the way over in the Uber. I got in the car, and the guy says, "Do you work here?" And I said yes. And he goes, "What are you, the master brewer or something?" And I go, "Actually, I am." And he's like, "You kidding?" Once people understand who I am in my role at the brewery, I get immediate attention and questions about how am I in this role and what does it mean, and so I feel lucky that it's an attention-grabbing position that I can use it as a little bit of a platform to talk to people about my path that led me to being a head brewer. And likewise, I do lead a team of mostly men as brewers, and I'm so lucky that they have been so respectful and just treat me as one of their own. And I think they appreciate having a little bit different of a management style, maybe that a woman can bring as opposed to a man. So yeah, it's been an interesting experience, but I've been really welcomed with open arms in the craft brewing industry.
And Kapila, did you want to add something?
Oh,
that's okay. Okay, I thought you'd raise your mic. No problem. We're going to go to audience questions in just a few minutes. So if you've got some kind of percolating, get ready to share them. But I want to lighten it up just a little bit and ask each of you to fill in the blank for me. So, was there laughter? No, it's not scary or weird. But I would not be where I am now if fill in the blank. So, I would not be where I am now, blank. So it could be a positive, it can be a negative.
I'll take that one.
Okay.
I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for my amazing family that I have. am blessed to have amazing parents that have taught me the importance of education, have given me the self-confidence to be able to realize that I can do whatever I want to do if I put my mind to it, have supported me through my career decisions, and on top of that, I have an amazing role model in my mother. She is a very successful businesswoman, has been all throughout our childhood, has raised two wonderful girls, I think, well, biased, two wonderful girls, picked us up from swim practice, was cooking dinner with her coat on still, just trying to get us fed, and has become a VP of her company. I mean, she's been an amazing role model to make show us that you can do it all. And then lastly, I have an extremely supportive husband who realized that it takes a lot to start up a brewery and now to expand it, and he understands that this is my passion and is very supportive to allow me to go do what I'm excited about.
No pressure.
I would just echo that is having your your primary support system, whether it's your parents, your spouse, your partner, your friends, mentors, having that network around you is incredibly important, and I know without my family and my spouse, I wouldn't be where I am today.
I would say I wouldn't be where I am now if I wasn't willing to get outside of my comfort zone. And certainly running for office is enlivening and enlarging and sometimes even humiliating, but you have to learn to ask people for things. And that was getting outside of my comfort zone.
Excellent. So I want to circle back. I heard from both of you, Kapila and Mary, that family has been really important to you. And I think we've all probably heard at some point in our lives, particularly women, that women can have it all. The feminist movement kind of gave us that. And there are lots of women and men who have said, you can, but maybe not all at the same time. Or some people who actually say that women can't have it all. And so I'd love to hear from the panel your thoughts about this having it all concept. What does that mean? Can women have it all? Do you feel like you have it all? And if so, what does that look like? If not, is there some scenario where you see yourself having it all?
Okay, I'll go first. So I think my relationship with that notion of having it all has changed from the time I was 12 till 16 till through college and through the different phases of my career as to whether I thought it was possible or was that balance there or could I have it all. And I think at a younger, probably a little bit more naive age, I probably thought, hey, we were kind of raised to think that we can do anything, we can be anything, we can have it all, and I think there was definitely a lot of optimism there. But as sort of I went through my career, I realized it's actually a little harder, but it's still possible. So I probably am a little unpopular in the answer here, and that I'm not going to lie, it's hard. I have two boys, I have a husband with a career, I have a career. It's not easy. But again, you surround yourself with people who can help you. You're very clear and consistent about what your vision and goals are. You find ways to manage and balance things, and you can actually do it. It's probably not as simple as having everything all at once. I think I am a firm believer that at different times, each one of us has had to sort of make different sacrifices between my husband and I for career or kids or whatever. But net, it actually works out pretty well for everybody, and the whole family grows because of it. My career grows because of it. His career grows because of it, and we kind of find that balance. But I think it goes back to recognizing, what's important to you, and what does that balance mean to you, what your priorities are, and then finding ways to manage it.
Yeah, that was a really great answer on that. For me, I think as far as having it all, in just looking at exactly different times in your life, and knowing that you can do anything you want. You can study whatever you wish to study. The opportunities are there for people to do internships and apprenticeships and figure out if what they really want to do is what it is you want to do. And early on in your schooling and your career, I think that's all up to you. And then just having it all as far as family, and then building off of that, it's about prioritizing, right? Is that sometimes you are going to have to take time for yourself and for your family, and that can be hard. That's hard for me to do, is to delegate. But you again, surround yourself with a great team that you can delegate to, and you ask your friends and your family for help when you need it. I think it's possible, but exactly, it just may not be as easy as we think.
I'm going to go to a question that was submitted by someone in the audience, so thank you for submitting that. The question is, what does being a professional look like when you're a woman? So I'm not sure if that means physically look like, or if it's a more, figurative look like, but what does that look like when you're a woman in your field? What does being professional look like? Or maybe what have you been told being a professional look like? Or what have you decided it looks like for you in your career? Kapila, you had a great story earlier that maybe I can ask you to recount about.
You want me to recount
about
that
someone? Yeah, so maybe some misguided
It wasn't
feedback.
the most positive one about women. I had participated a couple of years ago in a women's leadership program, and similarly probably to the one Debra described, it was just about engaging more women leaders and trying to help them rise up the corporate ladder, and what are different mechanisms of using social networks in the office, and better negotiating tactics for salary and position, and things like that. And we got to the workshop on executive presence. And I thought, oh great, now here we're going to talk about things like negotiation skills, and how to gain some influence and be respected more in the room and be heard in the room when the discussions are happening. And executive presence is going to sort of help us command that respect a little bit more. And sure enough, the workshop was about physical presence. It was about making sure that you had your outfits picked out for the day in advance, that you had matching boots and bags, that you kept your jewelry in little baggies, because we're all very busy. So if you color code your jewelry and put it in little baggies, you can actually grab it really quickly. It matches the outfit, you can run with it, and you have little packets of, have multiple little makeup kits so that you can have them in multiple places. Well, all hugely practical advice, I'm sure. For someone who prefers to go to work in jeans 3 out of 5 days a week, wasn't the most helpful, or frankly, it was a little disappointing. And so, I don't know. I think we've got to change our relationship with what the word professional means. I think it is changing. I think there are younger, newer generations where it has more to do with accomplishment than a guy in a suit and a tie, or a woman in a suit standing at a podium. But what does it mean to be a professional? I think we all have to redefine what that means.
And a little scary that at a professional development
opportunity,
they were talking about your jewelry, right? That's a statement a little bit about what people may perceive about women in business. It's scary. What about you, Mary?
Yeah, I would say, for me, being a professional means steel-toed boots, jeans, and my Lagunitas t-shirt, and my Carhartt at the brewery. That's what I go into work every day. You never know, you could get blasted by yeast, or our true material, which is our spent hops. So you're not trying to be in your nicest suit that you have. But that's what I love about it, is that my job is so hands-on that we're safe with our shoes, and if I get a little beer on me, I'm not worried about it.
And Debra, your role is one of many, many facets, and certainly relationships is a big part of your role, as well as the work that we saw a little bit in the video. So is there anything particular about being a woman in your field that is really important for that professional appearance or presence?
I do think so. I do not wear jeans to the office. I wish I could, but I feel like as a representative of the public, they deserve to see me representing them with the seriousness of purpose that I think that deserves and requires. In my view, one needs to be well-spoken, and you learn how to do that on the stump, but there are also training programs of how to talk to people and work a room and so forth. We all have seen in public life how women elected officials, there's much more attention paid to their dress, their hair, their appearance than men. It's sexism still, but it's a reality in our world.
Let's go out and just ask if there are any questions from the audience. We've got one up here, and we'll ask for a microphone to come up. We'll just ask you to stand up and speak clearly into the microphone.
Hi, my name's Sabrina, and I work at the Illinois Institute of Technology. So my question is, you've all hit really good places in your life, and I'm curious to know what your next step is, whether it's professionally or personally.
So I think one of the things for me personally that I haven't done as much with that I'd like to do more, I mean, there's still quite a bit more in my career I want to do, but engaging in the community a little bit more. Other things that are happening in the schools, in the arts, and sort of spend a little bit of time taking what I've learned, what I know, and maybe giving back a little bit.
I'm often asked, what's next for you? And frankly, I am not interested in running for a different office, but I want to work on developing a boot camp for elected officials to learn to talk about climate change. I think climate change is the overarching issue of our time. People vote with their guts, not with their brains. We need to have the messages that are geared to people's guts and test them using the techniques of political campaigns. So that's a project I want to work on.
It's interesting working for a company like Lagunitas that experiences 40 and 50% growth year over year. When I started with the company 2 years ago, there was 300 people, and now we're up to 700, and it's growing and it's growing. My next opportunity or next position might not exist yet, in the meantime, I'm loving what I'm doing as being the head brewer. But we're starting construction on our third brewery out in California, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming that I'm excited about. And yeah, I'm enjoying doing things like this, being able to spread the word about science and that there's science in making beer, and it's really cool.
There's water in making beer too.
There is. And there's business in making beer, right? So.
Right. It was a startup at one point.
That's right. Are there others from the audience? I think there's one right there. Yep. If you could just stand up so we can see you.
My name is Elise. I'm a student at the University of Chicago. So Mary, you mentioned earlier that when you came into Lagunitas as a head brewer, that a lot of the guys kind of like this refreshing new management style of yours compared to previous management, I guess. So I was wondering if you or anyone else could comment on that, managing a large amount of people as females as opposed to males.
Yeah, so I think the management style that I bring to my Lagunitas team is more of a coaching style. I try to definitely coach them as much as possible and put a lot of emphasis on training. And think people are going to make mistakes, and the important thing that I see is that why was that mistake made? Let's talk about it. What can we change about our process? What can we change about our training? Rather than coming on so hard with someone and making someone feel horrible for trying to actually do something good for the process, So I do a lot of coaching, and I think there is a time and a place where you do have to have those tough conversations. but I try to reserve them for when it's appropriate. And just a lot of communication too is something that I've definitely found as something that's really important at Lagunitas. Things change so much. We're constantly expanding. We're constantly changing the way that we're doing things. So just having team meetings and listening to what my team is telling me about what they're experiencing with the processes, and they're the ones that do the jobs day in and day out, so they have the best finger to the pulse, and we can all make the process better if I take their feedback and act on it.
I know we started a couple minutes late. Do we have time for 2 more questions? Is that okay? Okay, I'm just making sure I don't get in trouble. So if you have others from the audience, we have some up here in the front. While the mics are running around, just a quick question for all of you. We talk a lot about mentorship when you're really young, but I imagine that as seasoned professionals, you still seek out advice and mentorship. And I wonder if you could quickly each tell us, what's the importance of mentorship in your work now? Where do you receive mentorship? And then we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I would say it's incredibly important to continue to seek out mentorship, because no matter where you end up in your career and where you happen to be at any given point, there's always something you don't know. There's always something you're going to need help with. There are always going to be conflicts, and you need somebody sort of outside your daily sphere to kind of help you navigate that. And don't ever underestimate the importance of that. For me personally, mentorship has never been a very formal process. There are certainly formal mechanisms of mentorship, but for me it's been identifying people who I respect, who I think highly of, or have I think have a decent understanding of either me or are completely removed from my situation, and start to build relationships with them and kind of use them as kind of a personal board, if you will, to be able to sound ideas off of and get guidance. And I think the other piece of it is being very respectful of who those people are. And they're not people you have friends, your mother and your partner to whine to all day every day, but your mentor is somebody who you want to have a constructive, productive relationship with. So it's not somebody you go to complain, like, these are conflicts and these are things. It's really how can somebody else help you navigate thoughtfully, strategically through certain things. So making sure that you're understanding the difference between sort of your girlfriend who you're whining to versus a mentor.
Debra, how about you as mentorship?
So I have what I call a kitchen cabinet of advisors who I pulled together when I was first considering running for office, who either had held office themselves or had run other campaigns, and they were willing out of their own free will to guide me and provide advice and counsel, and I continue to engage them periodically, and they are just interested in my career and I think in seeing more progressive politics at large on our board and in Cook County, but absolutely essential.
Yeah, as a professional, I try to definitely look at people that could offer different types of mentorship. So, for instance, we have a brewmaster in California who knows all things beer related when it comes to biology, chemistry, sensory, physics, you name it, he knows it. And so he's kind of my technical mentor that I'm constantly learning and improving my knowledge of making beer. And then I also have just a fantastic EVP of operations he's the business side. He understands how sales and marketing connect to what we do at the brewery. He is filling that connection. He is great at managing a team. He's great at handling budgets and making a business or operation run. So he's that other side for me. So I definitely try to dabble with different people that can offer different aspects of my career.
So finding those different mentors at these different stages is really, really important. Thank you. Ma'am in the front.
My name is Minjiwi Latham, and I have a granddaughter in Girls for Science. And this is science fair time, public school. So she's just taken her board to school today. But I was thinking that this is what we need for our young people. They really need to hear you talk, speak about professions that they would never even associate with science. And I don't know how it could be done, but I know that when science projects are done, a lot of times I think there's a profession that could relate to some of the science fair projects that are put on. It would be wonderful if some way we could coordinate a panel like this that could speak to students at science fair time. You know, the males need it too, but I know we're dealing mostly, and I'm dealing with a female, a young lady, but I just think this is so valuable. I've learned so much about other professions I never thought were related to science. And I think our children need to broaden themselves past doctor, nurse, lawyer, teacher.
That's a great point, and I think if I can do a shameless plug for my institution, the Museum of Science and Industry has a number of programs that do exactly this, really bring diverse representations of science and scientists to our audiences. So I'd love to connect with you after, but I think there are lots of ways to do what you're talking about, and lots of people very willing to share their expertise and their time for what you've described. We are going to have time for chatting during the reception, so let's just go to the last question and then we will wrap up.
Hi, my name's Cory and I'm from the Field Museum of Natural History. I'm a scientist, curator, and professor there, and I founded our Women in Science group, so I'm really glad to see initiatives such as this run by C2ST. And so thinking about sort of, you know, the career paths that you've all taken that are related to science, what would you tell your 8 or 12-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
Great. So your 8 or 12-year-old self, or perhaps the 8 or 12-year-old selves who are in the audience, what might you tell them?
Work harder. I honestly, I think I said it, I don't remember if it was here or earlier, that I wish I had gained a greater sort of depth of scientific and technical knowledge earlier in life, earlier in my career, so that I could have just accelerated everything. Because now, you know, it's in everything we do all day, every day, and we're constantly going back and trying to learn things. So I would say one thing is just work hard and learn, and learn as much as you can. Be as curious and creative as you can with the science. And I think the other thing is just to any young person out there, you're going to find science in everything. So whatever you set your heart on being later in life, and however you think you want to make your impact in the world, if you have a scientific foundation, I am fully confident you can accomplish anything.
Volunteer. There are opportunities all around, in labs, in prairies, and expose yourself to whatever you can.
Yeah, I would say get involved in what you can get involved with. At 8 or 10, it might be hard to get in the car and drive yourself somewhere, so it takes some involvement for parents as well. But for the science clubs and things that kids can get involved in to really develop that love for science, and that goes through into high school and into college. There's so many things that if you connect with a professor, if you go into a training program, many of these colleges have training programs now where you can work with a company where they'll support you and give you the experience that you're looking for. So I think just get involved, try to find ways that you can really figure out your passion.
One of the things that I often tell students, if I can add, these are beautiful responses, is to not be afraid to fail. I think all of us chatted a little bit about failure before the session started, and that failure is such an important part of growth and of science and of technology, and there are very few successes without many, many, sometimes embarrassing failures. I had a glorious one 2 days ago that I'm still recovering from, and so this idea of accepting that failure is part of how you learn and how you grow, be it in science and in other domains, is a really important thing to learn young, to not be afraid of, and to kind of charge full steam ahead. So thank you. I think with that, we will thank our panelists. If you could join me in giving them a round of applause.
And before we go to the back of the room to have some refreshment and network and again celebrate this beautiful panel. I would like to invite Holly Copeland to deliver some closing remarks. As I mentioned in my introduction, Holly Copeland is taking a leadership in a corporate world in women in STEM, and Horizon Pharma, her company, is graciously supported our program tonight. Holly?
Thank you, Christina. So as Christina mentioned, I'm with Horizon Pharma. I head up corporate social responsibility and public affairs for the company. We're a very proud sponsor of this evening's festivities. Hopefully you all are very pleased with what you've learned this evening. And we're also a proud supporter in general of the work of the council. At Horizon, we are firm believers in the idea that there is a lack of women in STEM, and that is not due to a lack of talent. And so addressing that issue through creative solutions is something that we're committed to. And one solution is having a conversation and a dialogue, which is what happened this evening. Other solutions are, we supported a startup challenge in its inaugural year for women-led biotech companies, where we provided a platform for them to pitch their ideas and then provided them with some financial resources on the back end. Another thing that we've done this year is, I'm very proud to say, I see Jackie Lomax over there, representative from Girls for Science. She's waving. It's a tremendous organization that provides exposure to young girls to the STEM fields, and we provided sponsorships and scholarships for the girls that participate in that program. So I thank you all for being here, and hopefully you all are as committed as we are to seeing this through and making sure that we can make a little bit of a difference in this area. Thank you.